Underoos!
Marvel didn't just give us cameos, they gave us cultural earthquakes. Channing Tatum finally showing up as Gambit, John Krasinski stepping into the suit as Mr. Fantastic, Charlie Cox returning as Daredevil. Moments that made theaters erupt like stadiums. But here's what most fans don't realize. Marvel carefully designed these cameos into their most dangerous weapon. But how exactly did they pull it off? Let's rewind to Phase 1. Think about the very first hit, Iron Man, in 2008. Nick Fury walks out of the shadows. One line.
I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.
That wasn't just a cameo. That was the cinematic Big Bang. In less than 30 seconds, Marvel rewired the rules of movies. They weren't teasing sequels anymore. They were promising an entire universe. Nobody had ever seen that before. Every movie ended with a breadcrumb. Tony Stark shows up in The Incredible Hulk. Hawkeye gets introduced in Thor. It was like Marvel was playing the world's longest game of connect the dots, except nobody knew what the final picture would look like. And audiences ate it up. But here's what's fascinating. Marvel wasn't just building hype, they were training us. Like Pavlov's dogs, but instead of salivating at a bell, we were staying through credits for a 30-second scene. They literally reprogrammed our movie-watching behavior. Think about it. Before 2008, credits meant time to leave. After Iron Man, credits meant the real show might just be starting. But Marvel was just getting warmed up. Phase 2 and 3 weren't just about connecting movies anymore. They were about subverting expectations and playing with audience emotions like a master pianist. Remember Matt Damon randomly showing up as an Asgardian actor in Thor Ragnarok? That wasn't just a cameo, that was Marvel flexing. They were so confident in their formula, they could waste Matt Damon on a joke and make it
legend? Wait for it. Dairy. Legendary!
Or how about that moment in Captain America: The Winter Soldier when we first meet the Maximoff twins? Boom! X-Men characters in the MCU before anyone saw it coming. But the real genius move? Marvel started varying the reward schedule. Sometimes you'd get a massive revelation, sometimes a silly joke, sometimes nothing at all. Just like gambling, the unpredictability made it more addictive, not less. Then, 2021 happened, and Marvel dropped a nuclear bomb disguised as a Spider-Man movie. Spider-Man: No Way Home brought back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, not as new characters, as the same Spider-Men from their original movies. But here's what Marvel really did with that movie. They broke the fourth wall of cinema itself. See, for decades, when a movie franchise ended, it stayed dead. Batman Begins meant we'd never see Michael Keaton's Batman again. The Amazing Spider-Man films flopped, so Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was finished forever. Marvel looked at that rule and said, what if we just ignored that? Suddenly, no character death was permanent. No franchise was truly over. Every actor who'd ever put on a superhero costume was potentially one phone call away from returning. They turned the entire history of superhero cinema into their playground. But here's where Marvel's strategy gets almost disturbingly sophisticated. They figured out how to weaponize nostalgia. When J.K. Simmons returned as J. Jonah Jameson in Spider-Man: Far From Home, it wasn't just a cameo. It was Marvel reaching directly into your childhood, grabbing those Saturday morning Spider-Man cartoon memories and monetizing them. When Charlie Cox showed up as Daredevil in No Way Home, Marvel wasn't just bringing back a character. They were validating 3 years of fan campaigns and online petitions. They were making fans feel heard, seen, rewarded for their loyalty. This isn't just entertainment anymore. It's emotional currency. Marvel discovered they could make you feel like they were your friend who gets it, like they were on your side in some cosmic battle between studios. But they weren't done. In the Marvels, Marvel doubled down on this nostalgia play. The post-credits scene didn't just tease the X-Men, it literally showed Beast in full blue fur, confirming that the Fox universe was bleeding into the MCU. For years, fans had been asking when the X-Men would arrive. Marvel gave us the answer in 30 seconds. Not a new movie, Not a trailer, just one shot, and it broke the internet. Then came Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The film itself was chaotic, but the Illuminati sequence was a cameo masterclass. John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, Patrick Stewart returning as Professor X, Anson Mount reprising his role as Blackagar Boltagon, better known as Black Bolt. For some fans, that scene was the movie. It didn't matter that most of them were killed off in minutes. The shock of seeing them was enough to set Twitter ablaze. That was when Marvel realized cameos weren't just surprises anymore. They were events. Entire films could be built around them. And then came Deadpool and Wolverine. Oh my God. If Spider-Man No Way Home was Marvel dipping their toe in the multiverse pool, Deadpool and Wolverine was them doing a cannonball into the deep end while setting the pool on fire. Chris Evans returns as Johnny Storm from the 2005 Fantastic Four movie.
Sorry, what now?
Not Captain America, the Human Torch. The collective internet broke. Jennifer Garner as Elektra, from movies most people pretend don't exist, somehow making us care about her character again? Wesley Snipes as Blade, back in action after a 20-year hiatus, reminding us who truly owns the night.
There's only been one Blade. There's only ever going to be one Blade.
But here's the thing that blew everyone's minds. This wasn't just fan service. This was Marvel conducting a funeral for an entire era of superhero movies while simultaneously celebrating it. The movie literally created a graveyard called The Void, where forgotten characters from Fox's X-Men movies could have one last dance before Marvel's own versions take over. It was the most expensive, elaborate, meta-textual goodbye in cinema history. So what's really happening here? What is Marvel's actual secret weapon? It's not the cameos themselves, it's what the cameos represent. Marvel figured out how to turn movies into social events. Think about it. When was the last time you went to a Marvel movie alone? When was the last time you didn't immediately text someone after seeing a surprise cameo? They turned cinema into a shared experience again in an age of Netflix and isolation. But there's something deeper going on here, something almost sinister in its effectiveness. Marvel discovered that in our fragmented, disconnected world, people are desperately craving shared cultural moments. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Every surprise cameo is a small conspiracy we're all in on together. Every post-credits scene is a secret handshake between Marvel and their most devoted fans. They've created a culture where not seeing the latest Marvel movie means you're left out of the conversation. You're not in the club anymore. But here's where we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Is Marvel's cameo strategy becoming a crutch? Some critics argue that Marvel's reheating yesterday's leftovers and calling it a feast. That instead of creating new, compelling stories, they're just recycling old favorites for easy emotional wins. There's also the law of diminishing returns. The more cameos we see, the less special each one becomes. When everything is a surprise, nothing is. And let's be honest about spoiler culture. In 2025, keeping a major cameo secret for more than 48 hours is nearly impossible. Social media has turned every Marvel release into a race between fans who want to be first to share the secret and fans desperately trying to avoid spoilers. Marvel has created a monster they may not be able to control. Here's what's really wild. Marvel's cameo strategy is so effective that other franchises have tried to copy it, and they just can't. DC tried it with their Justice League movies. Star Wars has their cameos and Easter eggs, but nothing hits the same way. Why? Because Marvel spent over a decade training audiences to expect and crave these moments. They built the infrastructure, the shared universe, the interconnected storylines, the fan investment that makes cameos emotionally meaningful. When Superman showed up in Shazam, it felt like a missed opportunity rather than a celebration. Even his hyped cameo in Black Adam, billed like the second coming, was dropped almost immediately after. When Star Wars brought back old characters, it often felt like desperation rather than reward. Marvel didn't just create a cameo strategy, They created a cameo ecosystem that's nearly impossible to replicate. But here's the million-dollar question. What happens next? Deadpool and Wolverine might represent the peak of Marvel's nostalgia mining operation. They've literally run out of Fox-era characters to bring back. So where do you go after you've already brought back everyone? Marvel's got the same problem as a doctor prescribing painkillers. The first dose works wonders, but after a while, the effect fades. Fans need something stronger. The multiverse concept was supposed to be the answer. Infinite possibilities, infinite cameos, infinite surprises. But audiences are already showing signs of multiverse fatigue. And here's the scary part for Marvel. They've trained audiences to expect surprises. If the surprises stop being surprising, what happens to the magic? So here's Marvel's real secret weapon, the thing that turned 30 seconds of post-credits footage into a multi-billion-dollar empire. They understood that in our increasingly isolated world, people don't just want entertainment, they want belonging. Every surprise cameo is an invitation to be part of an exclusive club. Every post-credit scene is a reward for the truly dedicated fans. Marvel didn't just build a cinematic universe, they built a community. And that community is so powerful, so invested, so emotionally connected to these characters and stories that they'll line up around the block and spend hundreds of dollars just to be part of the experience. The cameos aren't the weapon, the community is the weapon. The cameos are just the ammunition. And here's what I want you to think about as we wrap this up. Marvel's success isn't really about superhero movies. It's about understanding what people truly want in an age of digital isolation. Connection, community, and the feeling that they're part of something special. Whether you're building a business, creating content, or just trying to connect with people in your own life, there's a lesson here. The magic isn't in the product. It's in the experience of sharing that product with others. So next time you're sitting in a Marvel movie theater, staying through the credits, phone buzzing with texts from friends asking, "Did you see it yet?" Remember that you're not just watching a movie. You're participating in the most successful community-building experiment in modern entertainment history. But here's the catch. All of this momentum is building toward Avengers Doomsday, and that's Marvel's ultimate gamble. Because if the biggest event doesn't feel like the end of the world, if it feels like just another multiverse cameo party, then the real Doomsday won't be on screen. It'll be in the audience. And if that doesn't make you want to stick around to see what Marvel does next, well, then you're probably not human. But seriously, what do you think? Are Marvel's cameos still hitting the same way they used to? Or are you starting to feel that fatigue? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, hit that like and subscribe button for more. Thanks for watching.